The 7th year of marriage. Bruno had grown tired of his flings outside and began yearning for the warmth of home. I thought for a moment and nodded. The next day, I brought my little lover home, the one I had kept outside. He was good at everything, laundry, cooking, you name it. Brother, are you warm enough? If you're cold, I'll knit you another blanket. Seeing Bruno's face turn dark and unsatisfied, I hesitated for a moment. How about I bring your mistress home too? Chapter 1. When I discovered that Bruno had poked holes in the condom, he didn't even bother to hide it, he just tossed it in front of me. I want a family, he said. Quit your job, Miriam. From now on, I'll provide for you. You don't have to work so hard anymore. I looked at the condom on the floor and suddenly laughed. Bruno and I had a marriage of convenience, a family alliance. For couples like us, plastic and hollow, we should have had a child 2 years before the wedding and a second one a year after. Nothing more than a means to strengthen our shared interests. It wasn't unusual for people in our circle to have lovers outside their marriage. As long as no one made a scene, that was the unspoken rule. But during those 2 years, Bruno made a spectacle of himself for his little lover. He'd come home to throw harsh words at me, telling me to give up, that his heart belonged to someone else. Then one day, he went to the wrong address and broke into the wrong apartment, our so-called wedding home, and got arrested. When I bailed him out, my mother-in-law was mortified. She held my hand and gave me 2 major business projects. She comforted me, saying, Bruno's still young and foolish. Once he matures, he'll realize the value of a home. Looking at the figures on those contracts, I tearfully accepted my foolish husband in his 20s. The profits from marrying into his family were so tempting that I could endure Bruno's mistresses taunting me again and again. For money, I could tolerate it. After all, I wasn't exactly innocent either. Fortunately, my own lover was far more tactful, refined, educated, skillful in every art, capable of hosting guests and managing a home. Over 7 years, Bruno occasionally came back to dine or stroll with me, showering me with extravagant gifts, just to make his lover jealous and prove his own importance. Whenever the girl beckoned, he'd rush to her like a drooling dog. The topic of having children never came up again. I never expected that. 7 years later, Bruno would suddenly bring it up. Miriam, we should have a child. I replied decisively. I can't. He froze, clearly not expecting my refusal, and stayed silent for a long while. I turned and went into the study, focusing on the acquisition proposal on my computer. This project was crucial. If I secured it, I'd finally stand firm on my own, no longer having to bow to the old men in the company or tolerate Bruno. My mom was right, he said, leaning against the door. I used to be immature. Coming home after work to a hot meal and a bit of warmth isn't so bad. I looked up at him, but my mind was on his mistress. What had gone wrong between them this time that sent him crawling back to me? Seeing the sincerity in Bruno's eyes, I didn't argue. I simply nodded thoughtfully, closed the study door, and went back to my work. The acquisition mattered more. As for Bruno, if all he wanted was warmth, a little haven for his wounds, that was easy enough. Coincidentally, my lover had recently been hinting that he wanted a title, even if just as a concubine. He was polite, warm-hearted, and good at everything. He'd recently been love-struck, depressed, and lonely. I enjoyed his delicious cooking and, watching the young man subtly flaunt his figure, I smiled and stroked his head. Move into my place tomorrow. Ryan's eyes lit up. His breathing quickened with excitement. I patted his cheek. My husband lives there too. Get along with him and don't cause trouble. Chapter 2. A hint of grievance flashed across his face, but he quickly comforted himself. It's okay, sis. I'll get along well with your husband. I won't let these little things make you sad. The real homewrecker is the one who's unloved. As long as I have a place in your heart, that's enough. Even though his words were dripping with pretentious coquette energy. Damn, it felt so good. His hand kept moving upward. I looked at his perfectly toned muscles, the veins bulging on his hands, and the flush on his ears. Permission granted. Ryan's cooking was flawless, in every sense of the word. As I grabbed my laptop to head to work, I slipped the house key into the pocket of his apron, reminding him, "You're staying tonight. Make a few more dishes. Give it that homey warmth. Let it really feel like home sweet home. The acquisition project had everyone on edge. The whole company was swamped. Back-to-back meetings without pause. When Bruno burst into my office, I glanced at him coldly, suppressing my irritation. I curved my lips into a gentle smile. What's wrong? I'm busy now. Let's talk at home tonight. Security. Please escort Mr. Bruno out. The ebony door slammed shut with a bang, cutting off all the noise. By evening, I massaged my temples and opened the door to my house. Waiting by my feet were slippers, and a warm glass of water was placed into my hands. Sis, you're back. You've worked hard all day. Come eat. I let out a long sigh. Ah, this is what warmth feels like. Bruno kicked the coffee table, the marble surface shaking with a deafening crack. His voice came out through gritted teeth. Miriam, what the hell is this supposed to mean? Instinctively, I looked at the table full of food, still steaming. It was all my favorite dishes. It's not like Bruno's allergic to any of them, right? He jabbed a finger toward Ryan, his eyes bulging with fury. Who the hell is he? What do you mean by bringing him here? Do you even still see me as your husband? Before I could speak, Ryan stepped in front of me. Brother, sis has worked all day. Can't this wait until after she eats? I know I have no right to interfere, and I mean no disrespect, but aren't you being way too inconsiderate of her? A faint warmth passed through my heart. Worth every penny I spend on him. Bruno was furious. You call that having no standing? You're this close to marching in here and declaring yourself the man of the house. I rubbed my temples, exhaustion washing over me. After a whole day of work, all I wanted was a hot meal and some rest, not accusations, complaints, and tantrums. Bruno, can I at least eat first? I'm tired. Ryan quickly pulled out a chair and served me a bowl of soup, cooling it slightly before handing it over. He tended to me with practiced precision, knowing my habits. Start with vegetables, then meat, then the main dish, and finish with a sip of soup. Bruno stood there stiff, like a rooster grabbed by the neck. Ryan had to call him over to eat. Brother, try this one. Sis said I make it really well. Brother, if you have any food preferences or allergies, just tell me. I'll learn whatever you like. I want to make sure you really feel the warmth of home. When I finally finished eating, Bruno gritted his teeth and hissed. So this is the warm home you promised me. I glanced at Ryan, who was dutifully washing dishes and preparing foot baths, and looked at Bruno in confusion. Hot food. The scent of home seems right to me. Despite his young age, Ryan was efficient and thoughtful, even preparing Bruno's foot bath. Brother, is it warm enough? If you're cold, I'll knit you another blanket. Bruno looked at the overly attentive young man and felt so disgusted it was like he'd swallowed shit. He suppressed his fury. Miriam, you know damn well that's not what I meant. I sighed wearily, gauging his expression, and after a moment of hesitation said, how about you bring your mistress home too? Chapter 3. The footbath bucket was kicked over with one violent blow, and Bruno stormed out. Finally, I could sink my feet into the hot water with a sigh of relief, thinking that hiring Ryan was the best investment I'd ever made. Ryan didn't even frown. He quietly cleaned up the mess, his expression showing no frustration over picking up the pieces, only the determination of a man ready to rise to the top. Ah, the hearts of men are like needles at the bottom of the sea, impossible to read. Unfortunately, until I secure that acquisition deal, I still need to fish out this particular needle named Bruno. I have nothing to do with him anymore. You don't need to come looking for me again. The typical tragic drama heroine, drunken father, sick mother, and a broken heart. I spent a fortune bringing her home, feeding her well, giving her comfort, just to help Bruno feel the so-called warmth of family. When I got back, the scene looked like a three-way standoff. Bruno was sitting on the sofa, chest heaving, looking like he was about to spontaneously combust. The young woman stood in the living room, face turned away stubbornly. We've already broken up. Stop bothering me. Meanwhile, Ryan was happily cooking in the kitchen, completely carefree, occasionally poking his head out to ask, brother, do you eat cilantro? Sis doesn't like it, but if you do, I'll make a separate dish for you. The girl spotted me and burst into tears. Madam, just because you have power and money, does that mean you can humiliate others like this? Ryan turned off the stove, crossed his arms, and leaned lazily against the counter, his eyes full of mockery and mischief. Lady, you can't have it both ways. You can't take Sis's money and still act like your pride's worth something. Love affairs are the same within a marriage. The unloved one is the real homewrecker. But once you become the third wheel, you'd better own it. Like me. He even sighed dramatically, shaking his head and clicking his tongue at Bruno. Brother, your taste in women is really something. I looked at that same stubborn girl, still pretending to be strong. She wasn't even that young, just 2 years younger than me, but she hadn't grown at all. 7 years ago, it was the same. 7 years later, nothing had changed. Back then, Bruno was in his early 20s, ambitious, radiant, a promising young man who didn't mind flattering his sweet, naive girlfriend. Now, in his 30s, he no longer wanted youthful passion but a steady partner, a harbor to rely on. How could anyone still believe in a man's idea of love? 7 years, and she never thought of improving herself. Never tried to use Bruno's connections to build a career. All she ever wanted was his so-called love. That hollow, useless thing. No wonder she could only stand here now, stubborn on the surface but helpless underneath, waiting for Bruno to give in. I waved my hand, signaling the driver to take her home, and even slipped her a card. Take it, you've earned it. Without her years of entanglement with Bruno, I'd never have been able to focus so fully on my work. After a moment, I added kindly, depending on a man will never get you far. The only thing that matters is the power you can hold in your own hands. Ryan tactfully handed me a cup of hot water. Brother, we're out of soy sauce. I'll go buy a bottle. Bruno ran his hand through his hair in frustration, pointing toward the two leaving figures, his mouth opening and closing with nothing to say. I was a bastard before, but I know I was wrong. Miriam, end things with that man. This situation is shameful. People will laugh at us. Maybe seeing me lower my head in silence gave him confidence. He continued tentatively. Honey, maybe you could quit your job? My parents want a grandchild. It's time we had a baby too. Lowering my gaze, I looked at the company group chat celebrating the acquisition victory, generously sending 30 red envelopes in a row. Leaning back in my chair, my body relaxed, toes swaying lazily. I said slowly, let's get a divorce. Chapter 4. Bruno shot up from his seat. What did you just say? Say that again? I rarely looked at him so carefully. With calm, deliberate clarity, I said, Bruno, let's get a divorce. You want a divorce just because I told you to cut ties with that guy, quit your job, and have a baby? Miriam, don't forget, you should have done this long ago. He was right. I should have. Though it was a marriage of convenience, when I was barely in my 20s, I still had naive dreams of love. I wanted to make this marriage work, if not affectionate, at least respectful. But reality? Everyone in Beijing knew that on our wedding night, the groom spent the night outside his little lover's apartment. I sat alone in our empty home. From dusk till dawn, I cried. I grieved, and then, I stopped caring. The next day, my mother-in-law, full of guilt, gave me a luxury apartment in the 3rd Ring Road. I calmed down. After that, whenever Bruno and his lover made headlines, my mother-in-law sent me jewelry. When Bruno was photographed leaving her apartment with hickeys on his neck, my father-in-law gave me a business project. When the little lover was hospitalized for stomach issues and everyone thought she was pregnant, my mother-in-law held my hand and begged me to be understanding. Perhaps she had already given up on her forever childish son and just hoped the woman outside would at least give her a grandchild. Out of guilt, my in-laws gave me a merger case, hoping I'd learn to be tolerant. I smiled and accepted every piece of their compensation. From then on, the last illusion I had about marriage completely shattered. No man's affection could ever compare to real profit. In 7 years, I was hospitalized alone, humiliated by clients, scolded by elders for being incapable, and cried in the dark countless nights. Step by step, I built myself up until people called me Boss Miriam, not Mrs. Bruno, and now he expected me to throw it all away just because he got bored of fooling around? Bruno, let's at least keep this dignified. Our dirty laundry had long been public. Some people once envied him, envied that he had such a composed, capable wife. He used to say, yeah, she's great, doesn't cry, doesn't complain, doesn't make trouble, and she looks good when I take her out. Bruno stood there, dumbstruck, mouth open with nothing to say. Before he could speak, Ryan grabbed his hand, empty-handed but brimming with confidence. Brother, thank you for giving us your blessing. When will you divorce? Tomorrow. Maybe? I'll make an appointment with the registry right now. Don't worry, brother, when I marry sis, I'll invite you to the wedding. We'll even keep a room for you. You'll finally get that warm home you wanted. I picked up my purse and walked out. There was still a celebration banquet waiting for me. Bruno watched my figure fade into the distance, then looked down at Ryan, who was clenching his fists tightly. Suddenly, he laughed. What the hell are you? Even if Miriam divorces me, it won't be for trash like you. Ryan smiled too, his eyes dark, predatory, like a wolf's. Yet his sharp little canine made him look deceptively innocent. I'm in a bit of a hurry, he said softly, so please, finalize the divorce soon. Otherwise, Bruno froze, startled. But before he could react, shouts were heard outside. Ryan's expression instantly changed as he cheerfully went to fetch the car. Through the window, Bruno could still hear his gentle, caring voice. Sis, you haven't eaten dinner yet, have a bite first. Drinking on an empty stomach isn't good for you. Bruno's gaze turned cold as he watched him leave. He raised his phone and ordered, find out everything about that man around Miriam, who he is and where he came from. Chapter 5. I knew Bruno wasn't the type to give up easily, after all. He'd clung to that mistress for 7 years. What I didn't expect was that he'd start using those same tactics on me. Bruno had his looks. I'll give him that, and with careful grooming, he looked especially dazzling. Watching that peacock of a man strut beneath the company lobby's mountain of roses gave me a headache. Miriam. I was wrong before. I'll change from now on. The repentant playboy chasing his wife back storyline might move a girl in her early 20s, but not a woman nearing 30. The only thing that could move me now was profit. Unfortunately, Bruno's family no longer had enough to tempt me. I was annoyed by his fake remorse, annoyed that he kept dragging out the divorce, and most of all, annoyed that I didn't have enough money to crush his family and make them crawl before me. Ryan stood protectively in front of me like a jealous young wolf, no longer meek or self-effacing, his tone sharp and fearless. Brother, those dark circles of yours aren't looking good. You're getting older, take care of yourself and try not to stay up so late. The roses are nice, though. Looks like you've got a steady deal with the florist. You must send flowers to a lot of people, unlike me, who just cooks and cleans for sis. Holding down the fort. Bruno's greenish face was almost beautiful, but still irritating. I couldn't exactly drag him to the registry office. Nothing free ever turns out good anyway. When I saw his mistress again, my irritation only deepened. It was like they'd teamed up to annoy me. Bruno, I think I'm pregnant. The girl stood at the company entrance in her white dress, trembling like thunder splitting the sky. Her words made me burst into a radiant smile. Bruno froze. Ryan lit up. I politely ushered the girl into my office, treated her with care, then picked up the phone to call the best divorce lawyer I knew. Time to prepare for battle. Bruno frowned at the ultrasound report, his expression unreadable. Ryan busied himself serving the girl tea and snacks. He'd have fed her fruit with his hands if I hadn't been there. Miss, are you sure the baby's my brother's? He asked with feigned innocence. The girl looked stricken, her face pale as she turned to Bruno. You think I'm lying to you? Bruno, it's my child. I'll raise it myself. It has nothing to do with you. She turned and left, only to bump straight into Bruno's parents. The older couple froze, having heard they were about to become grandparents but forgetting to ask from whom. Naturally, they recognized the girl who'd been with their son for 7 years. The scene looked nothing like a wife's pregnancy, more like the mistress's. Ryan politely excused himself, leaving the rest of us in the office. My mother-in-law took my hand, intending to handle things like always. But when she started to speak, she suddenly realized I was no longer the daughter-in-law she could control. Miriam, Bruno's still young. He doesn't know better. Don't worry, we only recognize you as our daughter-in-law. When the child is born, we'll raise it in the old house. You won't have to see it. I almost laughed. If the child's still so young, maybe they shouldn't let him out to cause trouble. Pulling my hand away, I looked at them calmly. Dad, Mom, you both know what my marriage with Bruno is like. I'm tired. I can't accept this child. Let's divorce. My mother-in-law looked at me, then at the trembling girl holding her belly. Finally, my father-in-law spoke. Miriam, our family owes you. You'll get everything you deserve. Bruno tried to protest, but one glare from his father shut him up. I nodded in satisfaction. It was a smart move, better to hold on to a grandchild than a rebellious daughter-in-law. There was never any sentiment involved, only calculation. As I walked away, Bruno suddenly laughed. Miriam, do you really think that man you're keeping is someone simple? Chapter 6. Ryan, is there something you're hiding from me? Ryan's heart skipped a beat, but his face stayed pure and innocent. Sis, you know me. Did someone badmouth me in front of you? I met Ryan at a quiet bar, young and dewy-eyed. In that bar he looked like a lost little lamb gone astray, making people think wicked thoughts. Even when someone splashed alcohol on him, he only frowned and didn't dare say a word. I'm not particularly compassionate. It just so happened I'd landed a project that day and was in a good mood, so I helped him out on a whim. The little guy followed me after that, looking silly and dazed. Sis, I really have nowhere to go. Could you take me in for a night? Once led to twice. Twice led to thrice. When I learned Ryan had just turned 18, I actually felt a rare pang of shame, ashamed before the nation for plucking such a tender bud. Who knew Ryan was even more sensitive about his age than I was? He'd cry whenever it was mentioned, and in bed he'd thrust with fierce abandon, as if refusing to face it. Before I officially kept him, I asked about his family. My parents are divorced. I live with my mom. She doesn't have a job, and my dad doesn't want to take care of me. So I ran off to the bar to fend for myself. I also have an older brother. He's 9 years older than me and busy with work most of the time. The private investigator's report didn't differ much from what he'd said. Single parent. Poor, but quite good-looking college boy. That was the label I put on Ryan. But Bruno's words still somehow got under my skin. Anyway, the divorce went through, and the one happier about it than me was Ryan. Possessed by a man-eater vibe, he pushed to be given a title. Sis, I'm not asking for a title. I just feel like I'm old enough to settle down. Sis, I can tell your ex still won't give up on you. Why don't you make him give up for good? I stroked Ryan's smooth cheek. He was 18 then, and now he's 23. My parents neither approved nor opposed my divorce, but they insisted I must have a child. I fully agree. Even though I can provide a good life for a child on my own, finding a powerful biological father is still necessary. After all, who would complain about having more backing? It greatly improves risk resistance. Unfortunately, given Ryan's temperament, he would never agree. He can accept being the side piece, but if anyone tried to be my side piece, he'd probably skin them alive. I've already chosen the child's father, Zach, of the capital. He and his wife are famously loving, honeymooning around the world, with 2 sons already. The younger son is extremely mysterious. No one knows his name, nor what he looks like. They couldn't be more low-key, but the family is always harmonious. There's no vicious inheritance war. Truly the best family and choice for having a child. After dining with Zach, I was even more confident in my judgment. When I came home and saw diligent, conscientious Ryan, I felt a rare twinge of guilt. Ryan said nothing. He kissed my forehead lightly, though his breath and body trembled. Sis, I won't blame you for falling for someone else. It's those shameless men outside seducing you, trying to wedge themselves into our relationship. Sis, I'll take care of everything. Our love will eventually move toward marriage. I love you. In the end, a low, pained, suppressed sob sounded by my ear. Br. The way you're doing this makes it hard for me to speak. I turned my face aside and slipped a card into his chest. Ryan, we're not suitable. Let's end this. If you're willing, you can come work at my company later. I won't treat you poorly. Chapter 7. Ryan left. The man who had always been gentle with me now stood red-eyed, telling me never to appear before him again. Miss, are you all right? I snapped out of it and looked at the man in front of me, smiling apologetically. Sorry, I was just thinking about my younger brother. Yes, my brother. He threw a tantrum and ran away. Zach nodded in understanding. his tone unusually talkative. "You've had it rough. My brother's the same way. A few years ago, he suddenly moved out without a word, wouldn't let anyone ask questions or look for him. Recently, he even said he was getting married. But when he came home the other day, he didn't say a word. Just sulked with a terrible temper. No one dares ask what happened. Every family has its troubles." At least Ryan knew how to soothe himself. Perhaps seeing me distracted. Zach didn't press further. The soft clink of a coffee cup broke the silence. "Miss, you're an excellent woman and a great business partner. But I don't think we're suitable. Rather than forcing something, let's talk about the next phase of our collaboration." I looked at the man before me with genuine admiration. No wonder his parents carried themselves with such grace. Their children were as valuable as gold. Zach was refined, dignified, and poised. He'd make an excellent business ally, and probably a wonderful father, but as a partner, he wasn't for me. He was too composed, too calm, nothing seemed capable of stirring him. Such a man makes a great leader for a company, but for a woman like me, he would be a nightmare. Our cooperation went smoothly enough that I even received an invitation to his brother's birthday banquet. The invitation sat casually on my desk as I stared at my secretary in disbelief. "You couldn't find him?" "No, ma'am. I checked everywhere you mentioned. The person you're looking for isn't there. It was my fault." Really, Ryan had hardly gone home these past years. He spent every holiday with me, and I never thought to ask where his family lived. He'd probably gone back to some quiet, remote little village. When I returned to my vast, empty apartment, it felt lifeless. So I decided to drive to Zach's place. Who knows, maybe I'd meet a few new clients there. The banquet was grand. I carried a glass of wine and slipped into the back garden, only to stumble upon the person who'd vanished for days. Ryan? He stood there in a white shirt, expression distant and melancholy. His tall silhouette stretched long under the dim lights. For some reason, guilt crept up on me. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things." Just a simple sentence, and his eyes turned red instantly, tears trembling on his lashes, threatening to fall. He was still younger than me. After all, I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around his waist. "Let's try again. If it works, we'll get married. Love can't be forced." It was true with Bruno, and it was true with Zach. As for the child, I'll be enough as a mother. Ryan isn't as foolish as he looks. The man in my arms stiffened, staring at me in disbelief. "What did you just say?" "Say that again, Ryan." I was thinking of marrying Zach, to give my child a stronger backing. But now I realize, rather than giving him more money, I should give him a happy childhood. After all, his mother's already wealthy. "Would you be willing to try with me again?" Ryan's tears finally spilled over. Like a puppy, he buried his face in my neck, nodding furiously. Once he calmed down, I finally realized something. "Wait, it's Zach's brother's birthday party. How did you get in?" His face froze. I took a job as a waiter. Needed to earn some money." "Ryan, what are you doing here?" I turned and looked behind me. Zach was standing there. Then I looked back at the panicked, flustered man before me. "Ryan?" Chapter 8. At some point, Bruno walked over, laughing mockingly. "Miriam, don't tell me you still don't know that your little boyfriend is the young master of this family, the very birthday boy tonight?" "No way." "Really? You honestly didn't know?" Ryan glared at the man who had come to kick him while he was down, rage burning in his eyes. He looked as though he wanted to leap forward and tear that smug mouth apart. Filthy bastard with a loose zipper. So what if he had the advantage of age? In the end, hadn't Ryan still stolen her away? Zach, hearing this, immediately understood everything. His younger brother's strange behavior over the past few days finally made sense. I accepted the glass of wine with a smile, my gaze drifting lazily past Ryan. "Miss," Zach said with a polite chuckle. "It's a bit embarrassing to admit, but my parents divorced when they were young. Even after reconciling, they never remarried. Ryan took our mother's surname. I live with my mom. She doesn't have a job. My dad doesn't want to take care of me. My brother's always busy with work." Not a single sentence was a lie, yet not one was the whole truth. He truly mastered the art of spring and autumn diplomacy, half-truths that hid daggers. "And your relationship with my brother?" I asked coolly. "Oh, nothing much." The man beside us immediately panicked. stomping his foot like a child. How is it nothing? Who says it's nothing? You just proposed to me a minute ago. I turned my head and smiled. Did I? I don't remember. I still have business to attend to. Excuse me. Zach chuckled, clearly amused by his brother's flustered state. Well, isn't this your almost fiancée? Ryan, furious, stomped hard on his brother's foot. It's your fault. Why did you have to call my name? Who said you could call my name? If you hadn't called me, I'd already be gone with her by now. We'd be married tomorrow. She already thinks I'm too young. It's not my fault our parents had me later. Now that she knows I lied, she'll never be with me again. And you even had dinner with her. Went on a date. Ugh. Zach looked at his brother's dramatic outburst and couldn't help but sigh internally. One creature conquers another. What a pair. I have to go back. Ryan huffed. I have to stay with her. I can't let those drooling dogs outside get their chance. When Ryan came trotting back to my place, I neither agreed nor refused him. The moment he entered, he went straight to the kitchen, busily cooking, and then carried his luggage back to the bedroom. Like a little wolf cub sniffing around his territory, he roamed the apartment, only relaxing once he confirmed there was no other man's scent. I couldn't help but chuckle softly. So I'd been wrong. He wasn't some poor, single-parent college boy after all, but a wealthy young heir from the capital. And to think, he'd played the part so well. No title, no complaints, spending years cooking, cleaning, and working his way up until he even replaced my ex. Then he knelt down on one knee, looking up at me, resting his face obediently in my palm. Sis, I was wrong. I shouldn't have hidden the truth from you. That deceptively innocent face made my thoughts blur for a moment. From what I'd heard, from Zach, from others, the young master of the family was anything but obedient. Yet somehow, Ryan always gave me that impression. Tilting his chin upward with my fingers, I asked softly, so, young master, was it fun lying to me? He smiled faintly. And you, sis, if you'd known I was a rich second generation, would you still have been with me? Of course not. After all, I only wanted a beautiful, sweet lover, not trouble. Sis, what did I do wrong? I just wanted you to give me a home. Why won't you look at me? Is it just because I'm younger? But I've got more stamina than they do. I'll live longer than they will. Sis, as long as you'll have me, I'll do anything, just don't make me leave. Please. I sighed deeply. He still didn't understand. Ryan, age isn't the problem. The problem is what you have in your hands. Chapter 9. When I put Ryan on the plane, I couldn't tell if there was more resolve or more pleading in me. Wait for me, please. I nodded vaguely, murmuring non-committal responses, then turned my head toward the cooperation proposal Zach had sent me and smiled in satisfaction. If Ryan were just a poor college boy, being with him would have been simple. I'd hold absolute control in the relationship. But Ryan wasn't. He was the youngest son of a powerful, wealthy family, with Zach and an entire dynasty standing behind him. His family might trust me to work with Zach, but they would never trust me to be with Ryan. This relationship, though it looked like I held the reins, was in truth a game of family politics. But I hadn't clawed my way to where I am just to fall into another web of control. What I didn't expect, however, was that deceit always comes at a price. Watching him at home, dutifully performing both the boyfriend role and, with equal dedication, the girlfriend role, I could only think, don't you have classes? Why did he come every month? MIT hardly seemed like a diploma mill, but judging by how often he appeared, it might as well have been. If you're willing to make the time, there's always time, he said. Ryan noticed the shift in my tone immediately. Sis, are you getting tired of me? Or, have you found someone else? Does he know about me? Can I go say hi to him? I don't mean anything by it. I just want to meet him, to learn what he likes, so I can cook food that suits both your tastes. How old is he? Is he impressive? I pushed his face away, speechless, but when I saw the dark circles under his eyes, my heart softened again. Stop overthinking, there's no one else. Go get some sleep. After that, Ryan became noticeably busier, as if something invisible was chasing him from behind. He finished a 4-year degree in 3 years and graduated with honors. Halfway through, he even started a company. Unlike his family's traditional manufacturing business, he boldly ventured into the tech industry. The tailored suit accentuated his lean, youthful frame. The trench coat draped over his shoulders gave him a sharp, commanding presence. With a faint, polite smile, he mingled with the hosts of the summit, his aura radiant and cutting. When I unexpectedly saw him at an industry conference, I almost didn't recognize him. Not until his eyes found mine, changing instantly into that same clingy, possessive look I knew so well. Did it feel real again? Ryan was growing at an astonishing pace. No one could predict his limits, only that his future gleamed brilliantly. Beneath that polished exterior, Ryan was terrifyingly intense. The softness of his three-piece suit became his accomplice. He thrust with ruthless strength, grabbing my hand and pressing it to his abdomen so I could feel him. His whisper trembled in my ear, sis, let's get married, please. Give me a title. The overwhelming sensation was frightening. I tried to pull away, but he dragged me back onto him, holding me down. I gasped sharply. It was too deep. Miriam, think about it, he murmured, his voice low and rough. I'll grow up. Ryan was no fool, on the contrary. He'd always been brilliant. During his years abroad, he finally understood why Miriam hadn't chosen him before. What she needed wasn't a boy who cooked and clung to her, it was a man who could match her stride for stride, challenge her, and lead her higher. A woman like her was never meant to stay for tenderness and sweet words. She would always keep walking toward a bigger world. Chapter 10. When I saw the 2 red lines on the pregnancy test, my mind buzzed blankly. It must have been that time Ryan had been terrifyingly intense, as if he wanted to pierce right through me. I stared at the 2 lines for a long while before suddenly bursting into laughter. Pregnant, no husband, and the father rich and powerful. Wasn't this exactly what I dreamed of? I hadn't even had time to execute my runaway with the baby plan before Ryan caught me at the airport. He held my prenatal report in his trembling hands, his eyes bloodshot. Miriam, I'm going to be a dad. I stared at the man crouched before my belly, reading prenatal education books with great concentration, completely baffled. How did he even know? The hospital where you had your checkup, it belongs to my family. Right. I'd nearly forgotten that this new money rising star actually came from old money. Ryan's gaze locked seriously onto my slightly rounded belly. Inside it was his claim, his bond. Once the child was born, he and Miriam would be tied forever, no matter what. Even if she refused to marry him, the child was still his. Was it wrong for him to want to see his child? Of course not. He'd waited once already. He could wait again. She was just playful. Once she got tired of playing, she'd realize he was the best for her. When the child turned 5, Ryan was still unmarried. Eager to spend more time with them and to prove himself, he volunteered to help tutor the kid. But when he looked down at the bizarre answers in her homework, he didn't even know where to start. His adorable daughter looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. Genetics were magical at certain moments. Her expression was exactly like her mother's. That resemblance often made Ryan soft, overly indulgent. But right now, he just felt a headache coming on. Sweetheart, you can't just inherit your mom's beauty. Our family's big and rich, you've got to inherit the business. Or how else can I enjoy a second honeymoon with your mom? When the child turned 7, Ryan was still single, at least legally. He leaned close to the woman absorbed in her work. Time had barely touched her. Motherhood had only added a gentle grace to her sharpness. He breathed in her scent, his heart full of cautious hope. Miriam, the baby's starting elementary school soon. Isn't it not great for her to be from a single-parent household? I don't mean to rush you or anything, he added quickly. I'm just worried about the baby's emotional well-being. A harmonious marriage is better for a child's development. I couldn't help but laugh, seeing the seriousness and the nervous expectation in his eyes. My heart softened. All right. Fine, we'll do it. We'll get married tomorrow. Our daughter, watching her father's over-the-top reaction, sighed and shook her little head with exaggerated maturity. Daddy was too childish. When she grew up, she decided she'd be just like Mommy, powerful in a suit, commanding respect everywhere she went. And then she'd marry a prince and live happily ever after, on top of the world.